Hello there, here we have another Defil Kosmos, all the way from 1980s Poland. And well, this is an interesting beastie, made in a very kind of industrial, agricultural, probably a bit of an unfair word, but yeah, a bit of a crude kind of construction compared to what we're used to in the guitar world. But it's the Defil, the Polish, I suppose it's the Eastern Bloc's version of the Gibson Moderne. I don't bash anything, complete with funny little nylon looking output here, socket. God, the craziest bridge. I'll give you a close-up look. So we'll start at the end here. We've got 4 knobs, one of them currently missing. Well, it's around, but Hugh's got it. So we've got 4 knobs. Now the function of these is mysterious, to say the least. We would have thought that we had a tone, a volume bridge, or volume neck, volume bridge, and a master volume, but it's not working like that. There's no way it's been wired up that way. So I suspect there might be something just generally wrong with the wiring. Now we'll find out in a minute, but underneath there there's usually a sort of iron curtain PCB, printed circuit board of some description, which is quite difficult to figure out. So we've got this very, very flimsy looking, well, metal anchor plate, but it's only held down by 3 screws and 2 very weak timber underneath. Then we've got this incredibly oldie worldy bridge, leading to what was originally 2 single coil pickups, and which Hugh has had rewound by Ken Armstrong, but they don't really sound that good at the moment. And then here we've got a very flat looking neck with great big dots, and a great big sort of oar of a neck. So Hugh is after a refret on this beastie, but also a re-radius to make the neck match the radius of this bridge a bit more. So we're going to have to check out and get a sense of what radius this bridge actually is. But really, we're going to have to take this whole thing apart. You can see up here that it operates on a 0 fret basis, which is not a bad way of setting the action. And actually, this thing's got a pretty low action as it is, which isn't too hard to imagine, because the low action helps to make the thing bend really well, or bend without choking, I should say. And it does have a truss rod in this neck, and so behind it we've got 3 flat head screwdriver plate there, and then we've got a bit of a, what do you call that thing? Oh, you know, funny word, volute, is it? Bit of a volute to strengthen the neck joint there. And then we've got these open old tuners which work. They're the original ones that came with it. And then on top of it we've actually got the Defil logo, which is a little bit hard to see. And the neck is actually 3-piece construction with the rosewood. When Hugh brought this over, actually, I've done a couple of others for him, and he was saying that one of the previous ones I did for him turned out the fingerboard was actually something like oak. And I don't know we don't know what's happened to it since I refretted it, but the frets have, while they were securely in at the beginning, they seem to have, I don't know if they're springing up. I haven't seen it in person, but it's not a great sounding thing. But we're wondering if it has to do with the fact that it's oak and it's not rosewood. Thing about these frets on these, what do you call it, Cosmoses, is that they've got a very deep, typically had a very deep tang on them, which was cross-hatched for grip. Now I don't know what these frets have got on them, but they look black up here, so somebody's done some fret leveling up here with some marker pen. But of course, to refret this, then we're going to need to add a bigger fret down here for the 0 fret business. Technically you don't need a bigger fret, right? That's the whole point. You can get away with the exact same fret. Typically people do put a bigger fret on, partly because it gives it, the first fret action, a bit of a lift straight away. But a well set up guitar with a 0 fret, which is exactly the same as the other frets, should play very well. Technically I suppose I ought to, just for fun, put this on a strap somewhere. different things going on here. I have got, I don't know if you can see behind me, I've got an oak caster sitting, hanging up, going out to new owner on Monday. Monday? Yeah, that's not yet, is it? Monday. And then I've got quite a few different things to do. I've got custom guitars to make, and how would you put this thing on? Custom guitars to make and finish and so on. So let's try this like this. So this won't sound much good at all because of these pickups are performing pretty weakly. There we go, in with the jack. Crappy Black Dog music. Nothing wrong with Black Dog music, just I don't like the pics they send. No offence, it's very kind of them. But okay, so we have an odd thing going on here. Both pickups on. So this bottom one is the master volume, so we'll keep that one out of the mix. So let's turn all three down, and then we have, this one seems to be going around forever. So we turn the front one up, and it brings up the neck pickup. Turn the front one down, and turn that one up, and we seem to get the neck pickup again. So these two control the neck pickup, and this one brings up the bridge pickup. So we don't appear to have any tone. We just seem to be getting two controls on the neck pickup, but they seem to add more volume to it, which is as if there's an extra pickup hidden in there. Cutting we can get. Now, I don't think they're that bad sounding. They are quite away from the strings, and I suspect, first and foremost, my suspicion falls on this wiring here, because it's certainly not doing the simple thing that we kind of agreed it should do, which is tone. I mean, we need a tone on here, right? Tone, front volume, rear volume, both. So you can set a balance between these two and then go, you know, overall volume higher or lower. Makes sense. I mean, in a sense you would probably, who knows, want master volume there, and that's probably what I would do actually. Master volume there, balance volume in these two, and then tone at the end here. Sound, but you know, Hugh paid for them to be rewired at Kent Armstrong, so I think they probably would perform a bit better than that. The volume on that amp there is up halfway, and you'd expect to hear a bit more output than that, but we don't know, so it's going to be interesting. We'll take it apart, and the plan is this: take it apart. God, there go all my wires again. It's got to not live there. Maybe it should live up here somewhere. Something will have to come out of here, and all the wires will go in instead. I'll pick them up later because it's not going anywhere right now. So yeah, so the plan for this is we'll take these off. Oh, it's going backwards. They've geared these backwards. Oh, how about that? Poland for you. Actually geared backwards, must remember this. Oh, that's weird. Am I imagining it? No, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, they're running backwards to normal. So for all I know, these could be a 6. It could be actually 6 in line, so the others might go the right way. Because can you imagine Defil being sophisticated enough to make 2 sets of 3, they probably just made sets of 6. And now where do I expect these to go? Nope. No, they're opposite too. So they have done 2 sets of 3 and they're all opposite the normal way. Well, there you go. I think I will label them just in case I've misread this in my brain. Because this simple 50% chance of getting it wrong lark, I'm always likely to get it wrong. I just cannot get my brain switched around that. Now we've got this little hooked over affair, which I do so dislike, you know that. And as always, look, every single time I have to work with one of these things, I get cut. I'll take a still. There you go, look, let's make it look dramatic, okay? Come on, more. Oh, it's clotted already. Yeah, I do hate having to do that because it's just like waiting to get you. No, I'll do this. There you go. And one more to undo. Keep away. So the thing about, oh yeah, anyway, let's get back to the plan. So the plan is this, to refret this, and we'll go with jumbo fret wire. And after that, after refretting, we'll have a look, or as we refret, we'll have a look at the electrics and see, God, that hurts, it sticks right in the end of your finger. We'll have a look at the wiring under there, and we'll simplify it and put it back to a simple 2 volumes, two balancing volumes, 1 master volume and a tone, and then we'll have a look at we'll have a check and see how well these actually play or not. So I think we'll get a better idea about the quality of the Kent Armstrong rewinds once we've done the rewire. So that's going to be the first stage. So refret, rewire, test. And then if they're horrible, then we've got some Telecaster pickups here, and I've got a brief to somehow make them work together with these covers, because they're really funky, these sort of tortoise shell covers. Now, oh my lord, the beauty of the Kosmos bridge is, look at this. It's a incredible piece of old technology. Somebody said it to them, it reminded them of the Mastery bridge for Telecasters, but I'm not sure about that. Well, kind of, I see what it's like, but it is remarkably straightforward and chunky. So we're going with the screws pointing back, but the important thing about this is to measure the radius on here. So I suspect it of being pretty flat, and I can only go, let's get this off, can only really go by the tops of the rollers, but that should be a fairly good indicator. So 20-ish. I actually haven't got any bigger size gauge than that. That's too smooth, I mean too flat, too round, I mean. It's actually a bit bigger than that, it's probably about 22 or something. And this is currently, or the frets I should say, are currently similar, they're not that far apart. I could have perhaps done it with the strings in, but then they should all be the same height, these rollers, the same degree of notch in them. And we've got sort of the, don't want to tip these out, we've got the negative correlation of the curve sitting down there as well, which we can visually check it against. 16. So I might have to go and find myself a slightly flatter one than that, but 20, it's actually a bit flatter than 20, I've got to say. It's about 22, could even be 24. Now I don't have a block of that kind, so that is going to provide me damn, I'm sure I don't have a 20 either, so I'm going to have to buy one. Look at that, I'm going to find one and buy one. 22 inch radius. Could I make one? I could, but it's going to be just a part of hard work. Okay, so it's a 22, I'm blood off here, 22 inch radius, and like I say, I think just looking at this one, I think that's this is what we could have. The light, I think this is I think that's 10, that's why. And these pins are a bit wandering, so they're 20. It's a bit flatter than 20, just a little tiny bit. So 22, I would say, is a fairly safe bet. It's slightly more difficult to check against this. Alright, so this, what we can say is certainly at this end, the radius on the neck is, the actual timber itself is probably more like, it's actually more like 12, possibly. Yeah, it's a 12. So it's quite a considerable difference, and I was kind of like to imagine that it, starting to imagine that it might have some compound radius going on here, but I think that would be a little bit too sophisticated for a late 1970s or early 1980s piece of Polish factory mass production. That, I think it's a little flatter, just a tiny bit flatter at the end here. I don't think by design, I think it's probably just by accident almost. So we've got 12 to somewhere under 14, but we've got 22. So there's obviously a considerable mismatch, and what that results in, as far as Hugh's playing experience is concerned, if I just spin you around, baby, right round, baby, is you have, let's say, what do we call it? 12, right. So we have a neck that's like that, okay, and then we have a set of strings that's kind of like that, probably, yeah, about something like that. So what you're getting is you're getting a tall action here and a much smaller action here, and of course you can really only set your playing action there. It's at its lowest point when you've got a mismatched radius. And what you really want is you want actually I should do it the other way around. You want something has to give. So what you really want to do is to take your fingerboard and do that to it, and so what you then end up with is a uniform height all the way across, and then of course you can bring your strings down, and even though they'll be lower to your new thing, you'll see that they'll pretty much follow the radius all the way across, and that will be very much similar to nearly the same as that, and so forth and so on, so it feels more natural. Now if you wanted it to be slightly different, the other options you've got, of course, is you can tilt the bridge up one side and end up with something that looks kind of like that if you want. So you get more at the base end, taller at the base end, but that's through kind of cranking your 12-inch radius curve upwards at one side to do that. Okay, clang, spin, whiz, doing. Right, woo, bits in there. Right, this is the funny part of working on these those things, Kosmoses. Working on them Kosmoses is that I end up taking them apart each time because you have to, but they end up looking really ragged once they're in bits, and you fear of ever getting them back together again. So you can see that the scratch plate just gives way to a hole with some tin foil flapping about in there, two holes, sorry, where the bridge just sits in that. It just sits in it, that's all. These little feet sit in there, and as you can see, you can go wherever you like. And it's only really held down by the strings, which is mad. Mad world. So I do have to remove these plastic nuts, oh hazelnuts. This is going to come off. We'll get some different screwdrivers. I mean, I'm going to take off this thing now. Hugh wants this replacing with some stronger screws and some chromed ones, because these are a bit diddy. They're not tiny, but they're not that strong. Now the whole of the string load is held in place by that plate, which has a little earth wire sticking out, but basically also just sort of sticks into a space with some tin foil for grounding, for shielding. So honestly, when this thing starts to come apart, it's going to all look a little bit scary. And the truth is, we can't really do anything without taking it all apart, because we've got a rewire under here, which means, well, we can leave the jack socket in for a minute. We're going to need to take care of the neck, so off comes our friend, the neck bolts, our friends, the neck bolts. Oh, lovely. The end of a day here. What kind of got bonus extra summer's days down here. I'm very grateful for that. Good old-fashioned bolts, but like the Echo days, Italian-made Echoes with great big screwdriver slotted head things. There we go. Nice big shim on the end there. Looking alright. We'll probably need that out for the purposes of fret leveling or fret refretting. Yeah, we will need that out. Good old fashioned strap button. Pretty much everything done with slotted screws. I'll leave that on there for now. Will I? No, I'll take it out. I can go in there. So I think what we also would want to do is we'll take the nut, and we'll take all, when we take all the frets out, we'll take the nut as well. I'm tempted to I kept some Evo Gold fret wire here. Now this is a bit flat, a bit rounded, a bit too radius, but Evo Gold is a bit bigger. It's bigger than this wire, or bigger than the wire I'm going to use actually. But the bonus of it is that it's much harder, and actually it would do well. I'll chuck it in there for now. It'll do well for this thing to have a harder 0 fret than it's got the rest of the frets. Yeah, well, just the 0 fret needs to be harder. Would benefit from being a harder material. So I kept some of that gold stuff, and I probably have a bit more hidden away over there, which I might re-radius or flatten out if I've got a bit. Yeah, I've got a spare bit. I can flatten it out to the correct radius when the time is right. Okay, for this I probably don't need to remove the tuners. Probably the best not to, so that I don't end up with them in all kinds of funny places. We do have to get this nut off, because that has to come off in order to re-fret it. So I'm just going to try and cut down a little bit and break any groove seal. Not easy to do. Manipulating a piece of sharp, brand new, very sharp blade. Just really trying to cut the. Let's put this back on for a second. Just trying to cut the poly or the finish. Actually, I don't know. This is probably nitro. Looking at this, it's got that very thin, crackling feel, and it's checked over on the, actually on the back of here and on the body itself. So just trying to loosen that off, help it on its way, and then we'll just give it a little bit of persuasion. I mean, the worst comes to the worst, if it breaks, then we can always rebuild it. It's levering out slowly, but it's not too keen to come away just yet. There you go. Help it on its way. And then if we can just break the seal. There's quite a lot of, what is that down there? Sort of epoxy or something that's been used to hold it in place. Just trying to keep it away from my fingers, because this is the point where you'll end up really seeing some blood if I get it. So okay, this is being put on the first time, and then the nitro has been sprayed up to and over the connection or over the join, which is sort of what you'd expect. There you go. And it's come off with a bit of rosewood on the end and stuff, but that's not too bad. Okay, and we need to clean that up there for the next time. And you can see the truss rod again adjusting with a slotted screwdriver. Okay, so this can, for the time being, just hang up in one of these nooses. By the way, the 0 fret on there is already notched like crazy, so that's how 0 frets made with regular fret wire go. Okay, now here's the fun. I think I probably do need this off. Let's bounce it off the white stuff. I know it doesn't make for very good cinematography, but now this Kosmos scratch plate is already cracked around here, so we're going to have to be very careful. And maybe we can do something to strengthen it from underneath. They made these from clear plastic or clear perspex. I'm not sure what the material was, but it's clear, and then it's painted on the back with black paint. And these screws have chipped off bits of the pick guard or scratch plate, whatever you call it. So it's just holding on very, very lightly, and same has to apply on replacing it. Probably the lightest fitting possible. So this is where you're going to get to see the marvels of being under the hood in a Polish Soviet era or Iron Curtain era of guitar design. Oh, what have I just pressed? Oh, I don't know, I've just hit something menu I shouldn't have done. Sorry. Right, the other day I picked this up and I ended up covering the sound thing. Here we go. Are you ready for this? I don't think you are. Okay, let's build the tension up first. So we've got these pickups standing on bits of cardboard, because otherwise they do that. And they're sort of tortoise shell thingies, and then you've got these holes here which give way to some shattered tin foil from someone's lunchbox. There's some wires there. There's 3 screw holes for the bridge, the string retainers. Bridge sits on those there. And are you ready for the scary thing as we go behind the curtain, the iron curtain? Well, you know, that's interesting. That's actually better condition than many that I've seen already. But just to get your head around it. So look what we've got. We've got this very delicate, shallow cutaways, shallow routes. This one is interesting because it actually looks like it's been routed by some sort of template. Some of them I've seen look like they've been routed by kind of beavers and drunken beavers, or hand grenade or something. So what you can see here is oh my god, the wiring, it's like these little thin metallic wires. So pickup routing, again, a sort of very grungy old template, but it's been mounted in a couple of layers at a time. Then we've got the bridge, the bridge footings there. Got the string anchoring holding bit there, and then we've got this classic piece of design, jack socket going into there, which means you actually you haven't actually got the space. Somewhere it's under here, so if you look at the line, it's quite close. But typically, you'd really want some more space there to get this jack socket in, because it's very, very badly made. But we can probably do it, push it into the same hole. And anyway, so you'll be interested in fact, what I'm going to do, since we're not going to use this wire ever again, what I'm going to show you is the rest of it, and this is going to dazzle you probably. So where we have the rewound pickups with their wires, and here we have the original thing. Now this goes onto this funny little circuit board, so what it's supposed to do there, I couldn't really work out the first time I tried it, and I think Hugh and I agreed that this thing can vanish, and we'll just replace it with standard normal stuff. So we've done this before. We've chucked the nonsense away before, not chucked it away, we've kept it in case you wanted to revert it to original. So we've also got excess wiring here that we don't need, and we've got enough wire to move around, but it depends if we're going to take this wire down to, we don't have a switch, remember, so this is going to be a slightly different thing. Now I have to go back through my notes, because Rickard gave me a wiring schema for doing this job before on a previous Cosmos, so I'm going to need to go and dig that up, because it isn't as simple. You have to do them in a certain way that you don't get an interaction between the two volume pots, because you want them as sort of separate things, and there is a way of doing it, and it's not immediately obvious, but we'll find a way to do it. So the bit that might seem scary is, let me just get the oh look, hang on a minute, we're not even plugged in, we're not even charging. Well, that's good. This is actually I've been using this for 20 minutes without even bothering to charge it, because it's not plugged in. So we have, I'm going to just basically cut these off here. We've got these two wound together, and this one separate. There's our bridge one, and then we've got the reds, and in both cases the reds are separate and the others are earths. Okay, so we're going to need to do some things. We're going to need to hang this up out of the way. There it is. It's quite soft wood, I have to say. So we want to put this somewhere safe. So I think under here is its best bet for now. Have a look at the output on these, or sorry, the resistance on these in a second, to see what they show as. I might write them on the back as well, so that we have a reference point. So I'm going to get my adjustable spanner. Oh, it's a nice night out there. We're going to have another nice day tomorrow. Kind of luxury, extra nice day at the end of summer. So I'm just going to remove basically remove all these nuts, which will allow us to take off the so-called printed circuit board. It's a sort of nice idea, but unless you're a bit of an expert, and there goes our ground wire as well, which we'll replace. So there's your wow, Cosmos. It says ZDKGHM Kosmos. So if you're clever, you could probably work out what that was supposed to do, but I'm not clever enough to do that, and I don't, if it doesn't, it's not that important. Hugh has made it clear that it's not all that important to keep it standardized just for the sake of it, keep it as original, but it can always be put back to that if somebody with more specialist Cosmos knowledge comes along. So I'm just going to have a look at the resistance on these Kent Armstrong pickups, and these have been dazzled by the scratch plate of this thing, but you can see where it's been sprayed and then covered over in tin foil. Wow, okay, what have we got here? Okay, so we've got neck at 7.4, resistance of 7.4 k ohms, and then we've got the bridge at that's not part of the kit, part of the meter, the bridge at 9.3-ish. 9.3. Okay. Well, I mean, they're not judging by that, they should be fairly, you know, they should, with that resistance you would expect them to be fairly something-y, do the job-ish. Okay, so we've got sort of cracked thing here. I think some copper around here, some thin copper around here to toughen this up might be a nice little touch. But for the time being, we'll get this safely out of the way, and we can tidy up some of this scrappy stuff as well while we're at it, so it's not quite as horribly done. Why it was done that way in the first place, who knows? But it's a very sharp new blade, so it'll do this pretty quickly. Yeah, so I'm going to concentrate on. I've got to just pick some, or find some, buy some, order some pots for this. We'll get some CTS pots. I can't see from this setup. I'll have a look. Oh yeah, these are, it says 22s on here. There's lots of, yeah, 22 NFs. NFs, nanofarads. Well, 22 nano, so it's probably 0.022 microfarads or something. So there's a couple of 2.2 capacitors there, which gives us a good hint. And then there's a bunch of transistors that will, transistors? No, whatever those things are. What do they call them things? Diodes, something, no. Whatever those are. Anyway, so it kind of gives the impression there's more curious functionality to this than meets the eye, but I think we need it to play rather than to do unreliable things. And I think by putting some new pots in here and doing simplified wiring, then we at least get to check whether these pickups are worth their weight in gold or not. So we've got an interesting situation here with these pickups. There's a sort of, they're not designed to be really designed to be adjusted up and down. So if you were to undo them and hold on to the little, there's a nut on the other side, what you get is you basically just undo them and they come out. And so there's a, I'll show you in a minute. So the point about that is that you're sort of stuck with wherever they sit in relation to the strings, unless you put a bit of a foot underneath there, a boot or some sort of lifter. And I think that we have to do that because they're a bit far away from the strings, certainly if you want to get a good output out of them. So we'll see what options we've got, and we can use some little plastic risers as opposed to bits of paper in the next time round. But so I'll be very delicate, gentle with this once we get these covers off. So just for a split second. So wow, okay, bits of stuff. What's that? Okay, so I have seen this before, of course. So here we have the legendary, well, the design of the Kosmos pickup, and these are said to be wounded by Ken Armstrong to a Strat kind of specification. That's what was asked for. So what you've got is a little metal tray with free moving screws, bolts, going into here. So theoretically, if you were to put these under here like this, you can't technically lift them up and down inside of here because it's free moving and it's only going onto a nut which isn't fixed. It's just a nut on the other side. So unless you can hold that nut, you won't be able to raise and lower it. So by default these things don't have an adjustability, and certainly when you put this cute cover on, it doesn't give them any more or less adjustability. It's just a cover. So we're going to have to do some thinking to figure out how to make this thing adjust up and down, and actually the solution may be to solder the possibly solder the the little nut to there and see what we get. But I'm just not gonna conclude that until we have a good look through our options. So there's we've got a little blue sheet to sort of cover, I guess, cover up the magnet, so we get a kind of darker colour underneath, which is a bit weird, and then in there, and then that goes through like that. So we could, for the sake of keeping all this in order, we could just put these back on, just keep the pickups safe really. On the other side, and we've got them marked, we know which is which. Yeah, so like I said, the only way that you can get something to go up and down is to drawing it up and down on a spring. So you'd have a spring in there, and you would pull it up and down into this. But again, this is actually technically sitting too low, so we would have to have this sitting on a foot of some sort anyway before we even got it working as a standard up and down adjuster. And then we have to have a guess how much we need it to go up and down. Bridge. But you know, even if we don't get that movability first off, you know, even if we find out early on, or first of all I should say, that the pickups have improved their function in terms of in conjunction with a simpler wiring, that would be a fairly good outcome, although I can't be sure that's what's going to happen. Now if not, then the opportunity to put in these other pickups underneath this cover will be quite a challenge, because it just would be, especially since none of this actually moves up and down inside this arrangement. It's the weirdest old thing. It's like a lot of these pickups from this era, we used to just kind of effectively screw to the top of the guitar, and it all hinged around it being vaguely close enough to the strings. But this is quite high. Okay, here it goes. Right, now we have the sick, slightly lame pickguard with its crack. Now we can get some glue or some what's that stuff? You know, resin or something into there. But I think we also have to do it in conjunction with something to strengthen it, because otherwise it's going to snap off. So if we put something under there, it cannot be thick, because it has to sit with all the rest of this on the surface of the guitar, unless we had an imprint of some sort where this would go, which we don't really want to do. I don't like the look of that at all. That jack socket, it's a beast. Let's just take it out. There's so little room to get that back in. Take that out of there. So, into the pickup and got stuck. Note to self: little screw has run away. Yeah, okay, workable, I suppose. Right, there you go, out of the way. I mean, how basic and simple is that? A lump of not very soft, not very hard timber. It's got a letter D on it. Oh, that could be a 9 or something. But right, that's that. So fairly early in the game, I'll be looking to fix that with some resin. I'll just hang it up here out of the way to begin with. I'm going to stop this for now. I just wanted to take it all apart on camera and see where we were. Hang this up here. It's very light, so it's not going to stress this part of the pick guard or anything. Right, and then yeah, the only other thing is to pull these frets and make some more. But like I said, oh my god, look at that for a night out there. But the thing I have to do is I have to get a 22-inch radius block. Hey, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Morris brought me a little bird today, which was almost on the point of expiring. So I held him in my hand very, very carefully and quietly for a period of time until he sort of calmed down. And I thought he died actually, but when I looked I could see him blinking. So after I was confident I'd given him a fair amount of body heat and calmed him down, I then put him in a box on this top here and covered it with a weight so that none of the animals could find their way into getting him. I left it for about half an hour and came back, and lo and behold, he was looking quite perky. So I took him down the fields, and then of course Morris and Fatface decided that they were going to join in and try and catch him again. In the end, I managed to release him into a tree where he, the first time I released him, he flew along the ground and seemed to be having trouble flying, and he stopped on the ground and the cats rushed straight at him. And then I quickly caught him again, and then the next time took him to the trees in the hedgerow and put him on a sort of spot or a branch some of the way up, and he flew from that point upwards into the tree. So I was very encouraged that if he could do that, he could at least stay out of the way of those predators, if not all of them. So fingers crossed he might make a recovery. Anyway, right, so that's the first bit of the Kosmos, and like I say, it looks pretty drastic taking it all to pieces like that, but I'm going to get on and prep this beautiful oak caster for sending to its new home. It's been bought and it's going to a new home, so I'm going to restring it with 10s now. See you later. Hello there. Are you going to run the camera without switching to USB? Well, maybe. This doesn't seem to be working. Power charging. Nope. I don't know what's happened to it. Something has happened to this wire. Right. Now it's plugged in. Sorry about that. Okay, so what are we here to do? Get this velcroed into place for a minute. Right. Job today is to defret the old, that thing, name of Defil Kosmos. So, to make this happen, I need a little rubber pad, I guess. Pardon me. Let's do it this way. A rubber pad. Things over there. Holy. I'm going to put that between the two actually, let's just hold fire for a second. Now, these here necks, the frets that are used on these actually appear to be more normal, but they originally were very deep tangs, and they had a lot of cross hatching on the barbs to sort of make them grip better. Anyway, and so these are, looks like a lot of water, but it will come off in a minute. Yeah, so these look a little bit not like that, so maybe the sort of standard ones. So I put some water on there. I just want to get it a little wet to begin with, and then I'm going to use a to put some back bow in the neck if I can. Ooh, in the truss rod. I'm not sure how well this truss rod actually does anything. It has a bit of a turn to it. A hint. Excuse me. A hint of back bow. It's not technically true. It's probably more. It's more just not quite concave more than anything else. Now, just looking at this, and I have got to remove something from here because I very much need a soldering iron at this point. So the bright light has to go. Oh well, we can live with it. Let me see what's going on. So quite a lot of water on there just for now. I'm just want it to get a little bit wet so we can get ready to remove the frets. And we're going to get the soldering iron warmed up, and then put the headstock under as light a clamping as possible just to hold it in place. Something like that. Not too bad. Okay. So this will heat up, and we're going to use it from this side. Could have used that light now. Oh well. That'll be alright. So the idea of the water is to soften up, if possible, the way the frets are held. So I'll just take the excess off right now. Okay, so I'm going to warm up the first one. Puff of steam, obviously. It's bubbling. Okay, now this feels like it's keen to come out fairly easily, and you can see the heat is just drying along the edge of the fret. Okay, it's the same style, but it's not quite as deep as the other one, so that is an incredible grip. There's no frets that we've got that will grip as well as that. This could be part of the problem with Hugh's other neck that I refretted for him, meaning that the grip on this is so extreme. And let's just do a little bit of measuring. So on the wire I'm planning to use, the tang is sort of by default 0.7, 0.9, 0.7. It's about 0.7 width. Now this one is at any one point it's 0.7. It's the same. Okay, but it has a lot more tangs to it, which all together may add up to feeling like it's slightly wider. So I think we're going to have to be very careful to use glue. I mean, we would use the glue anyway, but I think this needs a sort of thorough application of glue all the way along, because we can't afford these to pull out. Okay, so confirms the familiar structure or design. So the plan is, I won't set you through all of this because it's pretty boring, but I'll just run down here and, whoops, that's moving, create some steam and then we'll just gently encourage all of these old frets out. And there's going to be quite a bit of fret, a bit of radius thing to do here. Well, these really are firmly bedded in here. It's a good design. I mean, once these things went in, there was no way that they were going to come out with those tangs on them. Very thorough. Yeah, so I'm going to be on hold for a few days now on this one, once I've taken these out, because I've had to order a wooden radius block, 20-inch radius block. I've got everything up to 16 in my collection, but this is going to need 20 because the bridge radius is 20. So we're going to make the neck correspond to that. You know, mainly because I think the bridge is such an integral part of the look of the thing, then we really have to sort of preserve that. I mean, a simple way around, this neck is roughly 12 to 14 from one end to the other, or it varies a little bit between 12 and 14, but so in a way the simplest solution would be to change the bridge and put a modern 12-inch radius bridge, but that sort of defeats the object because what he was after is the look, including keeping hold of the original all four pots, even though we're going to slightly readjust the functionality of them. But so to keep that original very charismatic unusual bridge in place, we're going to re-radius the neck, and that's going to put it from, let's say, 12 or 14 at most to 20, which is quite flat. This even looks flat, partly because it's so wide, but it actually isn't when you look at it up close. So anyway, that's the game. The wet helps for these frets to come out without any pull out, tear out, hopefully. If it's going to tear out, sometimes it has a mind of its own, and it will. There's sometimes nothing you can do. But these are coming out pretty cooperatively. I'm sort of walking along and biting them up. But we'll get on and do all of those, and then we'll come back. Well, I'll dig around and find some pots and whatnot for this new wiring system, and perhaps I'll come back when I'm doing that. But for now, see you later. Boo! Excuse me. Dust on the windscreen. Well, it still is, but let's see if I can remove it. Hello, welcome to Dusty. Ooh, it's sticky. Sorry, bit of something in the way. Will we get rid of it? It's a bit sticky. We'll sort it out later on, sorry about that. Okay, we have the Kosmos, and this is a challenging little number because it's 20-inch radius, so I've had to make one of my little oak blocks to act as a radius insert, so I can basically bash the hammer, the whatchamacallits, frets in. Now, originally I would have hoped that I could get I was thinking of pressing these in, and then I realised that I don't have a brass insert of 20. In fact, I don't have anything of 20. I've had to buy that recently, or just now, to re-radius this, but we don't have a 20, so I'm going to do the hand-held thing. It's a pretty good way of doing it, actually. You can tap it with one of these. There's probably enough weight behind it, and then this is obviously going to just about sit on the edge. I don't want to put any pressure on the neck joint, so I want to hit it from here. Okay, so with all of these, the game is going to be, we're going to cut them all at a reasonable size Now this one is chosen extra large for the 0 fret. Now I was going to use a stainless steel or a gold Evo fret, but the problem with the gold Evos, I don't know where they went, but the gold Evo is all a little bit smaller, and so it is with the stainless steel as well. So this didn't work out. Let me just double check this to be absolutely sure. This is the 1st fret. Oh, shut up, neighbours. Right. So we got 330 at its mostest. If this is 330, we'll do that. Yeah, you know what? 320. See, it's not quite. That's 323, 329, 330. Actually, you know what? That is the same. Let's do this. It's the same size. That's a little bit bigger, but let's put it off to one side. Let's go with a piece of this because it's harder. And the beauty of this is it will give Hugh several years more playing time. The 0 fret is always going to notch more than any other. It's going to notch more than any other fret in this whole setup. So the idea about this is we're going to decide, do we want the metal to come to the edge or do we want to undercut and fill? I think we'll undercut and fill with, we'll use the same thing I did last time, which was mahogany wood filler, which is around somewhere. So like all things, I'm going to start with cutting the overhang. The overhang in a way gives you a little bit more neck flexibility, wood shrinkage and so on. So we'll go from this end. So here's my start point, and then we'll just leave that in there. And what I'll do then is once I've placed all of these, I'll then go down and mark them all for cutting. So we'll treat them all as if it's a bound neck. So a bit of overhang, not too much, and then we line it up. So this is all nice jumbo wire sitting nicely there. Plenty of extra cut on these, give me lots of room to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all these to shape and length and so on, and then tap a few in, show you how I do it with this oak block thing, and then I'll kind of cut off because you don't really want to see the whole thing from start to finish. You can figure it out. The thing about this, using a block and tapping it, is sometimes it works better than using the press, and sometimes it doesn't. It's hard to know. Again, with all of these things, is clearing the slots out and prepping the underlying fingerboard is the most important of all the tasks, really. You want to make sure this thing fits in as well as it possibly can, if all the frets fit in and seat nicely. Now the beauty of these, of course, is they are jumbo frets, so there is a little bit of extra material if you do need to level out some weirdness. The nice thing about re-radiusing the fingerboard first is it does give you control over the underlying wood, whereas if you don't, you have to work with what you've got, and sometimes there are strange undulations and weirdnesses. Okay, this one's putting up a bit of a fight. That's not too bad. Sometimes it doesn't bite cleanly. So this is just a matter of getting all lined up from one side, fairly flush, and then we'll go and mark everything for its length on the other side, and then get everything trimmed. You can see there's a fair bit of excess to play with, to trim off, which is fine. So I've also got in delivery today came 4 CTS pots that I ordered for the pickguard. Now the pickguard on this, you may have seen, I can't remember if I showed you, I've repaired or strengthened the crack that was threatening to come break off. It's actually now under there, but there's a piece of tin under there, resined on to stabilise this so none of this falls apart anymore, because it was all split on there. So that's ready to go back, and we're just going to put some conventional pots, or decent quality pots more like, into here, and I'm pretty certain they'll fit in there. The other ones that came out weren't mini pots, they were fairly full-size things, so it should be alright. And we're just going to keep it really simple, and the first stage, as I mentioned before, is to check and see how the current pickups sound, whether we can free up their quality, which isn't really present at the moment, but we should see if we can make them play well. And then if not, we'll look into a bit further into how we're going to fit in substitute some Telecaster pickups into the units, which is going to be quite a challenge, because they're obviously built for a different guitar and a different manner of suspension, so we'll have to do some inventive thinking. But anyway, so I've just finished Nick's custom build, ready to go off to Arizona, hopefully on Monday. Been a while, but a few little challenges along the way, as usual. Nothing's ever straightforward. I guess it would be if you made 10, 15 or more of one guitar and you got absolutely completely used to what you were doing and ironed out the problems in the first guitar. But when you make a custom for somebody, it tends to be the first of that exact type. Which is why I've tried to always make one for myself first, if I can. Oh God, listen to them. Iffing and blinding. What a thrill. Oh yes. Oh well, that's the way it is. Okay. So I measured the tangs on the original, frets, and they were the same width as these, so there shouldn't be any problem replacing them in terms of being over tight or too loose. I'm wondering if on the other Kosmos we did, where it had an oak fingerboard, and the frets apparently came loose eventually. I'm wondering whether we went a medium jumbo instead of a jumbo, because I think this helps having the jumbo fret with the bigger tang, thicker tang, commensurately thicker tang, I should say. Anyway, so yeah, we've turned this from a sort of 12 to 14-ish inch radius to a 20, hence the homemade block for tapping in the frets, and hence the requirement for a radius block to radius the neck, the fingerboard I should say. Okay, nearly there. Oh, Bob, that's gone wrong, that one. Get in now. Insects. Right, there you go. Right, that's the last one, and then it's mark them all up down the other side, and then cut them and undercut them to fit. Now, a little detail which I'll probably do off camera is once I've cut these to fit, Probably worth filing down the underside of these tangs, because I've noticed before they stick up just a fraction. There's a little gnarled bit which probably gets in the way. Only a tiny fraction, but we want everything to sit as flat as it possibly can, so I'm going to hand file out all of those as well, but I'll do that off screen because it's boring, fiddly. So these will all be cut now to length and then undercut. Like that. So we go up to here. This is very brittle but very hard, which is good stuff for our purposes. Get the undercut right. So then we cut it to exact length, get rid of that, and it doesn't matter if it's overlapping or hanging a little bit, we'll end up whatchamacalling it, beveling it off. There we go, nice. And then we do the same with this, sideways cut at the mark, followed by an undercut. And then a trim to the exact length to square it off, and then we're our way. Oh, hello, phone dingling. Right, so we're just going to do all of these, and then I'll come back in a minute when I'm tapping the first ones in, but I'll do the filing under here off camera as well. See you in a minute. So while I'm at it, I've filed the flat, the tang underside, no, the crown undersides where the tang's been bitten off. And now what I'm doing is a little thing I've sort of innovated for today, and that is I'm just going back along these and bending back the tang where it's just ever so slightly distorted after cutting, and it's a little thing, little detail, but anything that's going to stop these frets going in nice and cleanly I want to take care of in advance. So a little bit of time straightening these things out is probably time well spent. That's gone the other way, let's get that back. Yeah, you can never be too prepared in a way. You always get this little twist where the pliers cut it. So this little, doing a very, very small amount of push, but I'm just straightening that little kink back as much as possible. Okay, so that can go out of the way, that's not needed. So let's put everything in a line, in its order. They're all cut exactly to length. The underside of the crowns where the tang's been bitten off has been filed flat using a little nifty little technique where I put the fret into this gap here, push it up there, and just gets me a proud little bit of the fret sticks up proud, and I can kind of support it and file it in one go. Okay, so now I'm lining up the frets in their correct order. I've got owls hooting out there. Okay, so here's the fun bit. We're going to get support on there. We're going to get our device, and we're going to get ready with our number one, what do you call it, you know, that thing, fret. So we've got to make sure that these things go in really well. So we're going to get a good they're very noisy. So we're going to put a fair bit of glue on here. I'd rather clean it off afterwards than not put enough on. And I'm also trying to get a little bit on the tang overhang as well. Can you hear them? Okay, so a little bit of faffing about getting it all in the right place. Now this is the kind of bit, is getting it lined up on here first, good, and then getting a good shot at it the right way up. Right, so that's going to jump up if I'm not careful. Okay, and then get my little bit of thing. Let's have a thing. I just need something, please. Just scrape. Oh well, I haven't got anything available to me to scrape the glue. This will do for a second. Let's run the paper down there. We can also get some debonder on there if we want to as well. So the question here at this stage, before everything's dried up, is how well is that seated? And that is pretty good. It's the worst possible location here because we can't really hit it very hard at all, but I'm just going to tap it a couple more times just to be absolutely sure. Okay, and then I'm going to call that done. Okay, so that's a pretty big fret generally. So the next one we're going to do the same. No, I don't have actually is any debonder standing by. I have actually got some here, look. So let's have a bit standing by anyway, so we can, when we need to, we can give a little bit of a squirt, clean up, just get as much as we can out of the way. The other thing, I can hear those owls. We'll clean the rest of that with a blade anyway when we're done. At this point I always chuck the paper straight on the floor so I can get on with fretting and then do the next one. Now as we go down we'll get a bit better grip, a bit better support I should say on the neck as we're fretting, but the first one is always right out on the edge. So a bit on the ends there and get it spread all the way along, line it up, feel it with the fingers. I mean the thing you can do to begin with is just tap it in with the rubber end, plastic end, and then we're going with the radius insert thing, and then just have a look. Now that's interesting. I'm not sure that's looking like it's in. Let's hold it down and do it again. Now, looking at this, that's actually struggling to sit flat, which is really odd because it's cleaned out and everything. So I'm going to give it a little bit of the old plastic help. We shall see. Point about this is if it doesn't work out, there's something about these slots that isn't working. I mean we've got the standard slot saw that I use, but we shall have a look as we go, and then we'll keep that there, and hold it down and hit it there. So let me just check. I've done this a few times before, but we just want to make sure there's nothing in these slots. I was pretty confident there wasn't, but let's just make absolutely sure. I'll use the blunt end of this. Actually there's a bit of stickiness, so if we have got some stuff caught up in here which needed to come out, then we might end up having to remove that one fret if this is not clean enough, and that will serve me right. I'm busy chopping my fingers while I'm doing this, but I thought I'd clean this through good and proper, but I guess I haven't. Let's run this through. Sorry for the delay. I might have done a bit more radiusing after I cleaned it the last time. So yeah, missed out the stage of fully cleaning this out. But as you'll see, that feels a bit sticky. I'm going to come back down through these with the blunt end as well, just to clean it out once raw. One of the reasons I try not to run the saw over it once I've radiused it and sanded it is because the saw leaves a kind of skid mark on it, because there's a sort of guide on the one side of the saw, and it makes a shiny side here. And if you use the saw, then you have to clean out the slots again. Sorry, if you use the saw to clean the slots out, then you have to sand out the skid mark that the saw left, which then you end up with dust in the slots, and it's like it's going around in circles really. You can see I'm using a sharp knife back to front, which runs the risk of sticking in my finger every bit of the way. For some reason this feels sticky. Right, that's better. Improved things a bit. And like I say, if that isn't good enough, then we'll remove that one and do it again. Okay, let's get on back with the glue down the top, a bit on the ends, and of course you get this on fingers as well. There's no avoiding it. Just have to be careful, knowing that there's glue on the end of fingers, which could transfer to places you don't want it to go. And then we're going to tap this into place first, then we're going to go 20-inch radius. Let's have a look. Yes, still, it's not as bad as it looks from above. I'm being a bit overcautious about it. Problem is we're hammering on top of cork and on top of a bit of a bounce here, which is it's kind of giving it some spring at every point, but it's the best we can do at the moment. Okay, when it comes to the end of this, I might have to do a bit of nitro respray on the edge here. It's a little bit cracked anyway. Well, not cracked. There's a shrink join between the fingerboard and the neck, which has left a little bit of a raised edge that you can feel. So probably needs, or it could do with a bit of blending. I've not got my usual cleaning thing. Okay, that's better. We're going to find that's got quite a lot of little give in it, but we shall see. We're close to, are we there? Yep. Okay, we can move that. Go away, daddy long legs, go away. Right, so a bit less spring and bounce. Okay, like I say, I worry about the glue overspill afterwards, because we get that up very easily with a knife blade. So sort of those owls that sound a bit like a steam whistle. Oh, missed. Quite an interesting call. Well, that's not seated at all well. Come on. That's better. Would this work? Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. It's not perfect. This is that's not behaving. Why? How weird. Really doesn't want to go in, and that's crazy, because that, there's no reason why that should sit up. We're going to have to remove that one, I think. So this is quite a challenge. I mean, let's take this off. Let's see if we can double check and make sure everything's as clean as it can be, because if I don't want to have to pull loads out of this, this is not going to be a great look. It's a pain in the butt. I mean, this looks pretty cleaned out. Looks smooth, and it's going through about as smoothly as you can get. It's snug, but it's not unworkable. Keep on going. Right. I'm thinking of, what have I got? I've got another one here, but actually that's not. It's a different kind of saw. It'll make a too big a hole. I think we're about as good as we're going to get. That's my standard tang width, so we should be good. A bit cleaner now, so let's go and give it another go on this next one. And I want this to be all smooth and easy. Place it on there. Tap it home to make it fit. And then. Let's spill over, which is what we want to see, really. I'm not really bothered about anything except getting it seated in there correctly. very weird indeed. It's just going where it wants to. Maybe there's an unevenness, slight unevenness in the fingerboard. Most of them look good except for there's definitely one there not happy at all, which we'll have to pull out. Let's have a think. Is there anything else? I mean, that's kind of widening it slightly. If I can get it all the way through. Custom made little device. This. Holy cow. See if that's going to help us in any way, shape or form. It's funny that the ones that should be the most straightforward just sometimes aren't, for reasons that I cannot often put my finger on. There we are, that's on, that's on, that's on. Squirt out either side. Still looks a bit high up on this side, despite giving it a good hit. I won't bother with this, I'll just get it seated and worry about the excess later. That's not too bad. Okay. I've got spare fret metal, so if I need to pull one and refit it, that's fine. Or pull one and make one, another one. That's cool. Things getting in the way today. 1, 2, 3. Do what you're told. Don't like that one. That's a pretty good radius, by the way. Made with the bandsaw and sander thing. People, eh? Radius. Supposed to be a piece of piddle. Right, it's going on straight down here. What it's revealing is just a slight flat spot on the on the fingerboard, but that's no big deal. These things are going on at the 20 what was intended for them. Pow, pow, pow and pow. Okay. I think I'll pull that other one up in a minute and then see how they all look after that. There's one that just definitely isn't sitting well. Probably because there's some gunge still in the slot that I missed. Fall. Thank you. On okay. I'll have to switch over in a minute. The thing about using a press is that you get familiar with the sort of pressure to use on it, and then going back to a hammering technique is a bit of an unfamiliar territory. So you're never quite sure how to deal with it. That seems to be about right. Right, now we're going to I'll do one more on there to off, then we'll switch over. That hurt. But not seriously. Okay. Thank you. Get on there. Right, so this now we have to get this bit. How do we do this? Well, we're going to do it with some blocks and things, I think. Stand that up for a minute. Okay. Things will go bouncing around now with those bench dogs or whatever they're called, but don't worry. Okay. Lined up. In. Do up. 20-inch radius. Sit down and do as you're told. Okay. Take one of those off. Those off. I'll have to go and dig out some more fret wire to do a replacement for that one, but it's not a big problem. I've got enough. Okay, we're on solid ground now. That makes the hitting it a little bit more reliable. Okay, so I think the problem in the first couple ones was we had some gunge caught in them from previous sanding, which I thought I'd cleaned out, but it just goes to show how big a difference it can make when you have got stuff in there, even though technically you think it's below the level of the tang, but it still makes an impact. Okay. Yep. Thank you. I'll chuck that one away. That one's got clagged up. Got some sort of mosquito in here now, tracking me. Hear it right in my ear. Stand up, stand up. Come on. Line up. Good, good. Good, 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 good. Ish. Come on, ham-fisted hands. That one's sitting up right on the edge here for no apparent reason. A big slam. It really didn't want to go down either. Do as you're told. Right, we're on the last 4 with maybe 1 replacement, or possibly 2 at worst. Solid hits. Ow, already cut my finger down the middle yesterday. See, now that's still not on there. It's weird. Doesn't want to sit on the edge there. Better. This is not turning out to be an easy one, which is annoying. It's a bit non-standard for a start, as we know, because it's was refretted, or was fretted with those weird Eastern European frets, but quite why that should make it fight so hard, I don't know. This doesn't want to go in easily, that's for sure. It's protesting. Yeah. Wow, that's a funny one. It's odd. Oh, frustration. Some days when it just seems like your hands don't do what you want. You get glue on them and then they get stuck together, and it's like you might as well not have bothered. Come on, down you go in this corner. For goodness sakes. Okay. .20 radius, blimey. Why, I ask you? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the bridge is that. That's the main reason why. The only reason why we're doing that. But okay. It's got to go backwards in time to there, and to there, and up there. Right. That one doesn't look good at all. If we can't do anything with this, then it's coming out. Let's think it's going to come out. Basically, as long as they're all safely in, we can level out any small differences. Let's give it a final thwack. Jump. Breaking my own fingers off doing that, I know. Missed my block altogether. Well, nearly. Oh, come on, ferrules. Made the ferrules jump out. glue that. I think what I should have probably done which I did actually with the other blocks, is I think I should, actually not bad now, I think I probably should have cut this narrower, because it actually works better as a thing that you track across and hit it 3 times in different places. So I think the others are a bit narrower, so I think I'm going to cut it down later or in a minute, like this. Still the same radius, just a narrower piece. These seem to work really well, and there it's about the same as that. That way maybe spreads, if it's too large it spreads the load, a force a little bit too far. Okay, so looking at that now, it's a lot better than it was. I must go and find the ferrule that came out the top there. Right, so I'm going to let fret leveling do the rest of the work on this. It's harder than I thought it was, to be honest. I think I've just about got away with that one that didn't want to sit. Oh, there's one there actually. I'll give that one more go. In fact, what I might just do is I might just, which one is it? That one. I might just go and cut this down to size. What's the time? 20:58. Right, a couple minutes before 9. There we go. Cut that down to size. Let's have a look at this dodgy one here, which is that one. So there's our 20-inch radius. Give it a smack. It's still a little bit reluctant to play. Now if that won't do the biz, then we will end up leveling it down. I need to resin that together actually. That's all I can do with this one. So it's just that one that's slightly high. Let's have a look. Okay, so that's the basic fretting done. Blimey. In you go. These need tightening up as well. I'll get these fixed back in. Get this one fixed back in, tapped back in. Okay, so what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to examine all of this and see how badly out of kilter it is, and see whether or not I can give it a fret level down to where it needs to be. That's the sound of my stepson from 100 yards away up in his room playing stupid video games. Okay, alright, so I'm going to switch this off, stop talking, and have a look and see if I can do basic level just to get this, get a sense of how close or far it is from being good to go. Because if it isn't good to go, then I'm going to have to rethink this. It's just maybe one of those that's fighting me too far. I've got a scab of super glue on my fingertip, which is grim. Now apparently this debonder Paul down the market suggested it's really basically just cellulose thinner, so I've got tons of that, so I might have to end up using some of that, but not near nitrocellulose paintwork. That's the main thing. Okay, now up here we've lost the lid. Right. Okay, I'll catch up with you when I've got a verdict. Hey, good morning, good day, afternoon. Let me just put the power in. Yeah, power is in. Okay, I'm doing restarting. I may not include the original, but I'm restarting the refret because the last one was a disaster. And the reason why is that I didn't make the slots wide enough. I miscalculated the difference between the original slots and these new jumbo ones, and actually there were enough to make a difference. Two aspects. One is that the frets wouldn't go in smoothly, and I ended up with too much unevenness for me to deal with. And the second part is because they were a different size, ended up with a kind of back bow, slight back bow in the neck, which was totally undesirable. So I have recut the slots, chucked away the original frets, my mistake, recut the slots to a wider dimension. And actually when you get into that sort of place where you don't have anything, you don't have a set of different diameter, different thickness saws, you have to improvise, and in this case I improvised slightly with down there, spider, I improvised with a metal hacksaw, which was actually just perfect for this purpose. But you just have to get by with what you've got sometimes, and that was an example of that. Anyway, I'm going to carry on filming this just so there's no discontinuity, but, and I say I may have deleted the first bit because it's kind of pointless showing it all effectively going wrong, other than to tell you that's why it goes wrong. You know, get the slots the right dimension, even if you have to improvise with how you widen them. That's basically my advice. And I should have trusted my instincts, because my instincts when I hit the first couple of frets in were, this isn't working. And I was saying to Claire just now, in pilot terms, I was suffering from what they call home-itis, which is a whole set of internal pressures to just get to a particular destination, in this case finished refret. And so I carried on beyond the point where I should have looked for a suitable field and put my aircraft down using the, go back to the aircraft. But we, you know, as in flying, people are so reluctant to do that because obviously it means you're not going to get back home to New York tonight. You're going to miss your night out at the opera, and you're probably going to bend your aeroplane a little bit putting it down in a cornfield. In this case it would have meant I had to stop, waste the frets that I'd put in, figure out what was going wrong and start again. But the bottom line is you come out with your life. So as it happens, I didn't do that. I carried on flying, heading for, you know, driven on to my destination airport, and in the end it caught me with no choice, so I ended up crash landing in a field, and I did a lot more damage to my project, if you like, because I didn't choose which field, and I just had to make an emergency landing, and that cost me 20 quid in fret wire and a few hours of starting again. But there you go. You know, the living and learning isn't, the lesson isn't what goes wrong. I knew that it wasn't working out. The lesson is trust that experience and don't push onwards. Stop and rework. So I was lucky insofar as I didn't damage the rest of the neck, or there wasn't any major problem I couldn't undo. But there are situations where I wouldn't have been so lucky, and that would have been the equivalent of crashing and dying, if you get what I mean in the aircraft analogy. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm listening to something, as you can see, in my headphones, and it's Sunday, and with that in mind I've been dying for a bit of time to listen to my new audiobook, which is Douglas Murray's The Madness of Crowds, and I'm going to listen to that and just sort of carry on pretty much pretty much untalkative, which will be a first. So if you join this anywhere in this, that's what I'm doing. I'm combining time off because it's a Sunday with carrying on doing a job, which I already did yesterday but had to undo. Okay, so I'll leave you there. Come on, fingers. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tailor every one of these. And again, the boring process. I'm going to tidy up before I get onto the hammering part, having redone everything. But while I'm just here, I'm going to tidy up each of these frets. So I'm going to just take them off and put them loosely there. These feel like completely different the way they're going in now to the first time round. You know, the slot is wide enough to tap them in and they'd stay in place, but with a little bit of glue they'll stay in place well. So it's completely different from before. Before they hardly would go in. So. Okay, so what I'm going to do with each of these is I'm going to do two little things. I'm going to tweak the end tang to straighten out the little burr or the little twist. I'm going to hold on to this and I'm going to flatten down this bit of tang so it's nice and flat to the surface. This is harder, this Evo Gold, so a bit more work needed. I said I wasn't going to talk, but I'm doing both, if you get what I mean. Yeah, sits beautiful. Right, we'll just carry on. Good old Douglas Murray. I love that guy. Common sense. In a mad world. I don't really know why I'm putting those back in. That doesn't make any sense. Just leave them hanging there, boy. Ow. Douglas Murray, wish I could stop this. He's talking about the book, and he's saying that the only people who are currently free from the tyranny of political correctness, as he describes it, or he doesn't use that term, are people who are self-employed. In other words, people like me who don't have to worry about stepping on the wrong socially incorrect thing in terms of how you relate to somebody's assumed gender or somebody's issues of race or whatever the flashpoint triggers are. It's quite an interesting set of concepts. Anyway, he just I'll probably get the video demonetized just for mentioning his name. You wait and see. Anyway, yeah, he's quite right that when you work on your own, okay, you've got video to consider like this, and which is why I'm always careful anyway about not going too far into certain contentious issues in this day and age, but he's right. You know, I have the luxury of not having to feel like I'm walking on in a minefield 24 hours a day in my workplace, but I also have the luxury of not having surplus of money and holidays. But hey, I have a lot of satisfaction, so I ain't complaining. The madness of crowds. Or The Crowd, I can't remember which it is. I just bought it on audiobook yesterday. I fell asleep listening to it, so I've probably listened to it once overnight, but it's not the same as actually listening to it. going to, well, let's just hammer in, tap in a couple of these just to get a feel of how much easier it is, how much more appropriate this feels now I've done this alteration. And then I'll go off camera and I'll tidy up. Right, yeah. So I'm just going to set these out on the side in the correct order. Oh, bugger. So make sure these are all the right ones now. Let's come this way with that one. Okay. Okay, that's just raised up enough to keep the headstock off the ground. I need some force on there. Okay. Now, well, I need my little block somewhere. Ah, that's a dead one. Now I've shortened this again from the last time I did it. It's actually better as a short block rather than a longer one. Anyway, so glue, lump of glue. Line it up, hold down the end, get the right end of this, tap it, tap it, tap it. Not too worried about overspills, I can clean that up later. What I want is to make sure this is seated well, and that is much better, much easier than before. If I'm not sure, I can tap it again to be absolutely sure. Yeah, baby. So I'll do a couple more and then I'll go off camera, but this is my rework. So I'm using enough glue on this because I've widened the slots and I want these to hold at all costs, and it will, I promise you. Now if you want, you can tap them home first like that and then go on top with the radius block just to make sure it sits all the way in, and then oops. Again, check placement, that's a million times better. So there we are, straight away everything's seating the way it should. One more and then I'll go away. I'm currently listening to the interview, or an interview, kind of with Douglas Murray, a sort of review from a German website, but I shall then switch off and go to the book itself and restart it so I actually get the benefit of it. absolutely so much better. There we go. So, okay, I'll just see you later when it's done, and then I'll be ready to file out the bevel out the differences. So we've got one gold fret here, the hard 0 fret, which is designed to last a lot longer than the regular nickel steel, because when you put a regular nickel steel fret in as a 0 fret, you'll get notching, and this one, the original the original fret on this one was seriously notched. So a way of avoiding it is, if you can, use stainless, or in this case I have some spare correctly sized Evo Gold, which is a lot harder and does the job pretty well. I mean, obviously it looks slightly different, but you kind of know it's there for a purpose, so you can forgive it being gold and the others being silver. But it will make sure this lasts longer. One of the things I remember having, well, every guitar I've ever seen with the 0 fret has notched early on in its life. Even the Brian May Red Special I bought, within a few months of owning it, it was already beginning to notch. You know, and that's not great. So I really don't know, having read the book, I still don't know what Brian May did and how he managed somehow to avoid serious notching, or maybe he just lives with it. And it isn't normally a problem. I mean, you know, the sort of strings find their own level in the notches, and the most it does is affect the playing action of the first fret. But the problem you get is that when you get notches, bending the strings will cause them to click up and over the notches, which is not great. Okay, so you can see it's nice, boring old step-by-step process now. This is, I can feel, you know, this is a good experience. You know, making mistakes is a good experience, because you can, if you're willing to admit it to yourself, you can make an immediate direct comparison between this time and the last time, and this time just feels absolutely like butter, and the last time was a fight, and I really should have paid attention to that. But for the reasons I said, I was hell-bent in getting to JFK, landing my private plane and going off on a trip to the, I don't know, Metropolitan Opera or whatever it is, I don't know where, but you know, going on a night out. Beautiful. And I should have landed and accepted that I wasn't going to get there tonight, and we weren't going to go to the opera. Anyway, so I could keep on going, I just don't really, no reason not to. Okay. Ah, it's just perfect, man. Right, see you later when it's done. Oh, here we are. Ooh, things done and dusted. Putting this back together again. Yet to wire up the jack socket, which now is looking invisible which is really weird. I put it to one side, so I should be able to find it really easily. Probably over here. Here it is. So this little thingy. Now what's good here is that we don't really know which is live hot and which isn't. And I forgot, but I should be able to tell from here, shouldn't I? Yeah. Okay. Assuming these are the two colours. But that won't work. That's a different thing. Cosmos. Well, I don't know what the internal structure of this thing is. How would we find out? Let's use a jack plug and find out. Shall we? So let's have a think. Well, will I learn anything from this? What I want is continuity tester. I don't know how to do it. Do I know how to do it? If I go tip to tip, do I even get the right thing? What am I looking for? Continuity. I could even be in the wrong department here. Ooh, okay. So that's the hot, and that's the ground. Ground is yellow on that one. Interesting. So that seemed to show me up something. Measured, well, it was measuring resistance, but showing none. But ground is yellow. Ground is yellow. Ground is yellow. Ground is yellow. Move that out of the way. So ground is yellow. So I'm going to just hopefully redo this, and then wow, okay, that's how it works. So I'm going to put a dot on here so I know where I'm going and don't forget. Black for ground is going to be yellow. Okay. So I can now take this off and hold it. Interesting old-fashioned unit, isn't it? Okay, now I don't want a very long lead coming out of here because I want to be able to push it in. I have a feeling I may have to lift this up again and push it in to get it in, so it kind of doesn't matter how long or short it is. I mean, the longer it is, the more difficult it's going to be to hide it. So let's just try and simplify it a bit, get it down to a workable length, a workable minimum. I'm also going to need to shield this off as well, so these things don't run any risk of hitting each other. It's not a standard jack socket for beginning. Anyway, so since yesterday I've been doing a number of things, but one of the things I've been doing is getting the edge of the fingerboard of this beast sorted, so it's ready for, the neck is ready to go back on and do the setup part. So let's just have a look at this. Keep that from there, keep them both, they've got to be the same length, like that. We have ourselves a bit of this stuff, so I can just about shield off one of these. So we said black was yep. So yes, actually we should put a little bit of this stuff on both sides just to be on the safe side. Yeah, so the neck is ready to go back on. I've filled in the edge with some nitro, because where the frets came out, or original frets come out, the nitro kind of breaks away a little bit. sort of par for the course really. So anyway, I filled that back in and filled in the fret end bits as well. So we should be ready to reinstall it shortly. Oops, I mean, it's not too bad having a lump of solder on there actually. Okay, so, oh well, it would be if it didn't have such a great big sticky lump. Okay, so a bit clumsy this. Got to go and get Nick's custom build ready to head off. Okay, black is earth. We're going with the hot contact first. Lined up. Come on. Trouble there is that's what happens, is it squishes down the shrink tube and it doesn't want to go over the bit that we want it to go over. Damnation. Well, we can try and get ourselves a fresh bit from here without chopping the whole thing off. It's really not behaving. Oh, maybe it is. Fiddly and annoying. Come on, right. That bit off. This bit possibly over the bit. Come on. Come on. Probably need a different size shrink wrap stuff. Well, to be fair, it's not the most important thing in the world at this stage. I'll keep pushing and it will eventually probably go over. That'll do. So we'll do the similar thing here, but maybe we'll try and stretch this one a little bit first. Can't even do it really, can I? We can. Trouble is, if you go up in size too much, it just doesn't really work. It doesn't do what it needs to do. So I'm trying very clumsily to get some stretch into here. We might just help it go over our join. Possibly, maybe. Okay. Hold this, please. Keep that well out of the way, please. It's only as so far I can move it. Ouch. Oh, that hurt. Of course that's shrunk that bit as well. Come on. Well, frankly, that's as good as it's going to get. Now, technically, we could have put a larger one on top of that again, but hopefully we shan't need it. Now, pushing this in from here isn't going to be good, which makes an annoying necessity of removing this pick guard with these very fiddly old Polish screws. So what I'm hoping to do is, once I've done this, and we've got this sorted, then we'll put it back together again. That's the plan. And once we've got the neck back on tightly done up, and then we can check the pickups. Now I've set these with a bit of rubber adjustment, so I've used this kind of rubber springs from vintage pickups, which gives us a bit of up and down movement. I've also basically put the lugs outside of the body, so the pickups are starting off higher to begin with, closer to the strings than they were before, and also movable, so we can go up and down and get much closer. And I'm hoping that that will result in these being usable. This is probably going to stick because I've got some, just make sure I haven't actually got any more screws hanging in here. Oh, right, yeah, this. Oh! Idiot. Forgot that part since I last took it off. Yeah, put some new screws here as well. Replace the smaller, less powerful original ones. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this back in here, like so, and I think we should just get these two screws done up. And there's three of these little screws, but I think one of them has to be for the top piece. Yeah, only one. So it's sort of vintage. Trying to do a Phillips type screw, not Phillips, a flathead, miniature vintage flathead screw from this angle is quite annoying. Now, obviously I've got to find where this one goes in. Come on. Hurrah. I mean, don't know how great a grip these things have now. Still feels okay. I think we'll get away with that. Right, put that in there. Fit that around there. Keep this dangling free. Okay. Let's get this back on. Line that on there. I want to give it some metal contact, give the bridge some grounding. Okay, that positions everything pretty tight, so I'll just get these little screwlets in first. They're so fiddly that my big hands can barely work them. I run the risk of losing them every time I touch them, so I'd be very glad when this part is done. Now what I've done here is the wiring. It's an interesting thing. I've something that's a bit beyond me, but what I noticed with this wiring is that it permits the pickups to be used. Normally when you link two pickups together, or sorry, two pots together, two volumes together, one automatically kills the other, and you'll often remember that from Les Paul copies that you've had in your youth, maybe, where you find that there's an interaction between the volumes, particularly. And Rickard showed me, helped me understand a way of wiring these up so that they don't kill, one doesn't kill the other. But the bit I couldn't get my head round, shut up, the bit I couldn't get my head round was the fact that individually each of these has a resistance of about, each pickup has a resistance of about 8 or 9 or 7 or 8, something like that. But when I use them together, the combined resistance, sorry, each one, the resistance was down to about half. And I guess that's the two of them together, each producing about half in partnership, which is still confusing me a little bit, but I followed the wiring exactly, so apart from that I don't know any other schemas. But that's because they're not running on a switch switch business. Now if it doesn't play at all this way, then maybe we'll go back to a switching, old-fashioned style switch somewhere in this mix, because this interacting volumes doesn't really make a lot of sense when all said and done. Okay, so we have some good old-fashioned bolts. We have the good old-fashioned neck with its new frets. Now I've given them a preliminary level, which and there's this kind of lacquer and nitro and stuff kind of on the frets at the moment, which isn't a problem, but I'm just going to get these refitted, get the neck refitted, and then we can sort of do the final cleaning up once it's all back together again. And we'll put some sacrificial strings on to test and adjust the action. I'm going to use sorry, I don't think the view is very good. Use my flat-headed screwdriver. Get this to bite, and then once I've put this on, what I will do is a quick test. The problem with these pickups is because of the covers they've got, you can't tap them with a blade or anything. You actually have to put a string in front of them for them to do anything. So we aren't really going to know how they perform until we've got strings in front of them, or at least a string. Okay. So fairly good grip. Good old-fashioned, like the old Echoes or EKOs. Right, so let's just do that little test thing. Now, although I don't have strings on it yet, I do have a test string I can use. I will do that. Here it is, in fact. Okay, right. Now, the way I looked at this before is that the pickups are currently too high, but I think I should still have some downward adjustment room, which was the plan. If not, I'm going to have to rethink it, because this is a sort of non-standard way of doing it. But previously I didn't have a chance to see how these were sitting in relation to the neck. Now this is actually quite I had this plan that I was gonna solder on these little nuts, and up to a point when they were under pressure they were actually biting quite well and doing up. I think they might still do it. As long as they're under pressure they actually behave quite well, even though they're not soldered on. If you take the pressure off them they don't work, so it's quite a nifty little adaptation. But let's get them fairly done in. Now these are the little rubber springs, if you like, under quite a bit of pressure. I'll just keep it going and tighten them right down. Yeah, we'll see how we get on. I guess we'll know when we drop in our friend the bridge, which floats madly around. Now that's going to obviously come in higher. Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to work. My plan, I think, will work. The thing with the bridge now, of course, is nothing works here until we get the strings on. Of course, the bridge will just float around. So, what I need to do now, I need to just shake the nut and get that ready to go back on. This plastic nut, its only purpose really is to hold the strings in place. So we can use, the idea is we're going to use the same one. It's already fitted and there wasn't essentially any problem. It's a little bit worn out, the plastic is worn out, but there's no reason why we can't use it. I don't think so anyway. So just to kind of help clean it up a bit, let's just get some of the grime off it. A bit of rosewood from the end of the fingerboard there. I just want to fairly clean. Don't want to lower it or anything too much, but we do want it to go back in nice and cleanly. Let's just have a feel. And the question is, well, I mean, mainly we want the strings to come up through those slots and over the 0 fret, and that's the only consideration. We don't even mind if they touch the wood as they go through, as long as they go through nicely. I think that should be alright. So let's put that down again for a minute, and let's get that back on the desk, bench. Right, so it's a bit messed up and untidy at the moment. I will sort that out in a minute. I'm just going to check on the condition of the end of this. It's nice and clean, I think, already, because I've already cleaned it up. But the idea is we want this to fit back on here where it came from. Interestingly, this nut is actually backwards, so was this originally off a left hand? The slope of the nut is back to front. It should go on there. So it may have been a left-hander nut originally, which is curious. Before we do anything, let's just get in here and remove this little bit of excess nitro. And the nitro is something I've just added to fill in or tidy the end bits. Yeah, it's definitely left-handed. It's also a bit it's a bit wonky in certain places, but that isn't really a problem because it's clearly working, doing what it's supposed to do. I mean, there's no harm in just opening it up a little bit here and taking that little bit of a catch out of there. What we really need is the depth on this. That's quite important. In order to hold the string, it has to be able to go down far enough in this kind of nut. Sometimes you can get the wrong sort of take on it and end up cutting it low because you think you need to tidy it up. But on a 0 fret equipped guitar, it's got to be the slots have got to be a lot deeper than you would normally expect. So I'm just going to put some glue on top of there and on top of there and on this edge as well, facing edge. Get this the right way around, or be it technically back to front, and then we're just going to put it down there, make sure it's snugly up to the end. Just leave it there for a second. And really all we care about is making sure that it's fairly central and it's going to stick. It's quite difficult to put it under pressure right now, so what I will do is I'm just going to leave it there. I don't have any means to put it under pressure. If I get one of these clamps on it, it might go zipping all the way off in some weird direction. I don't want it to go. Quite difficult to control the force of these. Maybe. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that set, and then you can see what I've got here is some kind of dust from where I've sanded the edge of here, and do a little bit more or a little bit of polishing out here, and then it's a matter of putting some sacrificial strings on and setting up the action, and then leveling any frets that need final leveling. But I've done an overarching one straight away to begin with, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So I'm just going to hang this somewhere near here, somewhere I've got a bit of room, maybe all the way down here to begin with. Okay, I'll do a bit of tidying up, so I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so still listening to my thing in my ear whilst restringing it, so I'll just keep it running, but I won't speak much. start with there. Backward tuners. Perhaps they should be swapped over to the other side, eh? Probably would be the solution to it. Ah! I should have taken care of this first. Okay, spare strings, so that's an 11, isn't it? Yeah. Must label it or else I forget. Doing this with 9s to begin with. It'll do the job, even if Hugh wants a different gauge on, which I'll check at some point tonight. And this is a spare 9. Hanging it up in Sparesville. Okay, let's get this on here first. There it is. Go the right way. So first off, positioning, surprisingly good. Hooray! Right, let's get a note off here. Running all of this backwards. Horrible tuners. Well, that's right up close to the pickup, so it's not bad. I mean, it's better than the other way round. Okay, let's have a quick listen. I'm going to stop my thing for a minute. Let's have a quick listen, see if we've got anything useful coming out of here. Ooh. Get a strap, boy. It's sat here for a while, this one. Well, that is sounding a lot better than it was before I rewired it, so kind of encouraged tone-wise anyway. And the playability bit is what we focus on next. Go the right way. actually quite a lot of output. Now we've got to lower this a bit more, which I think is going to require taking it all apart again. Oh no! Taking it all apart again and soldering on these little what's-its, because this won't pull down. In fact, this one, I don't know, let's have a look, see if it's got any more grip left in it. Maybe, maybe not. It's not too bad. Well, let's leave it for a minute. Also, we may be a bit low on the action anyway, but let's get it into a tune. Pickups are awful, I mean the tuners are awful. Bridge pickup. Neck. Okay, let's get, this is quite low, so let's just check. I think we can start by going a bit higher. If I don't have to go in and glue down, no, solder down those things, it would be cool. So this is coming in at about 1.75 mils on there, so it's kind of low. I mean, don't forget this is a Kosmos, and this is about 1.5. There's no, and actually it's down on its, no it's not, it's a tiny bit more it can go in, but it's nearly on its stops in both cases. So it plays. First of all, it's really the scale on this. The strings are too light for it, so I would definitely need to put some heavier gauge strings on, because I don't think there's any more undoing adjustment possible on this truss rod. I think it's as slack as it can possibly be without falling off. Yeah, I mean, we could keep going, but I have a feeling it would drop off at that point. So we would need some heavier strings to put some curvature in it. Where's the actual scale? I've forgotten to check what the scale length of this is, but it's obviously small. We might want to go for something like 11s even on this. Let's have a feel. These are only little sacrificial strings anyway, so I don't mind changing them over for something seriously heavy. Let's go Let's go from there to there. No, is that full scale? How bizarre. I thought that was a short scale. Have I gone mad? I think I've gone mad. 320, well, 325 really. Yeah, we're 650 on the bridge. Well, God, this don't feel stretchy. That's really strange. I would have thought that was a short scale. It's 324, 648. Strat scale. That's so weird. Well, nothing's staying in tune terribly well, that's for sure. Too tall, high up these things. I'm just trying to look at this. They can actually sit flush on the top rather than the way I've got it right now. So you could get away with without the rubber things on, because I think that would be about the right sort of height. Actually, this one might still benefit from being where it is. I think I want something heavier on here. Thing is, you know what? I have said in the past that tuners have nothing to do with tuning stability, but I'm wondering on this one. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but hey, trying to get all the slack out of this. I mean, there's no doubt 9s are too light for this. Get off. Well, mostly it's good, but there are some things I want to take care of. Let's double check the action again. Wow, actually that is mighty low down, but 0.2, that's my absolute low target. Slightly higher on the bass side. Never seen anything quite so bendy as that. Well, look, there's no doubt about it. We're going to get some fret leveling going on this flop. So there are some little chokes, not chokes, some little buzzes going on. But we'll do it as is, with the neck relatively flat, almost perfectly flat. And I've just gone and wiped off all the marker, haven't I? Yeah, but let's just go ahead and do it anyway. Let's see how we do. Bonk. Right then. Right, so still looking, obviously the fingerboard and everything still looks messy because I've yet to polish it all out. That's bizarre. This is very flat indeed. In fact, let's have a look at this. Are we actually suffering from? Hard to tell. The fingerboard has tiny bit of, well, I don't know if curvature is the right word, but tiny bit. It's almost none. I mean, it's virtually flat. So we might not be able to get close enough to it with this. This only goes one way, and it's at the extent, at its limit right now. Well, that's not bad, it's practically the same, but there's no further adjustment room left. Now this gets quite difficult because you've got to get that up and over there. Those slots aren't really good, so I have a feeling that we need to clean those out as well. That's a slight separate thing. Actually, I'm not really seeing what's going on because I've worn most of that off. So let's just do a bit of this each time we go. So I've got an idea of what's happening here. Most of it's on my hands now. The problem with these old guitars is that they will never be anything but an ancient Polish Cosmos. So let's just see what's cutting first, and it will be cutting onto the marks I've already made. So we've got a low spot, you see, and that to me kind of is more about the shape of the neck overall. But we'll see how we get on. just about starting to touch those now. Let's see. Now that, I have a feeling it's because I'm touching the pickup, which I am. It's not terribly helpful, but it does not. Oh, hellfire! Did I completely miss something here? Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to forgive me. I've just gone and done something. I forgot to put in 2 of these screws. Well, good on this. It's holding with 1. How did that happen? I was distracted. Anyway, holding with 1. Good on that. Okay, again, next one. Yeah, so we're going to need to lower this one down. Maybe you can cut the rubber spring in half. Maybe. Stop clunking. Okay. Hitting the pickup. We'll forgive it that much. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do this bit, finish this fret leveling, and then I'm going to take the strings off. I'm going to put a heavier gauge on. I'm going to remove the pick guard, take down some of that rubber on this pickup, or perhaps put it back to actually flush to the surface, and then try it again with some heavier gauge strings on. God, that's impossible to lift up, it's difficult. On trying. Okay, all good still. Pleased about those pickups though, because they're definitely a billion times better than they were before. So I can consider that a success. They're actually not bad sounding at all now. So that you can see how much the weird circuit board circuit was sapping the tone, that's for sure. I think that's actually hitting the pickup here. So I'm just cautious that that little hiss, that buzz, is not from here, it's from there. But I can hear it, so I know where it is. I don't know why this is so loose feeling. Why? This is a... It's amazing. Never experienced that before. This is it's actually 650. And this is barely flat at all, but we could do with some relief in it. But we'll have to rely on some heavier gauge strings to do that, I think. And a bit of extra work with the fret leveling as well. Might just give us a little bit of room back. Keep hitting that point. Again, that's vibrating on there. Get in there. Okay, one more, and then we'll get some big wires on it. Got some 11s. I'm going to stick a set of 11s on it. And just kind of go from one extreme to the other, really, just to see what an improvement it makes to the playability, if any. That's the way to do it. Just up the parameters by quite a lot, rather than hardly any. Yep, fall off the edge. Right. Hitting there. Okay, can't really tell any more until after that. Now I'm going to get rid of these strings because we're done in this department. Yeah. Maybe they just fall out, so that's the fun part, wherever they drop down to. So counterintuitive doing it this way. Right. Okay. So this is a nice bit in a way, because I can get the few tweaks done. I can clean up all the fingerboard now, polish out the frets, and get those last adjustments to the pickup heights, knowing what I now know. So hopefully we'll be in a much better playing feel by the time we come back. Now, like I said, I'm going to put some, I've got tons of different strings available. I'm going to put some 11s on next, because those felt so ridiculously bendy. It's beyond funny. But while I'm at it, take care of a couple of things that I caught myself out with. First one is line this up, put it back on. Holding that all down, but just have a think. No, I'm probably going to need to take this up anyway, aren't I? Because I've got to lift the whole thing. Let's do it all in one go. So non-standard and super pain in the backside, including all of these little screws. But we're going to get there eventually. But I only have to do this one more time, I promise. Okay. Go off there. These pickups are really difficult to handle as well, because of the way they poke through. Annoying. Right. So really, with things the way they are, I don't think we've got much room for upping and downing here. So I think we need to, as a pain as it is, we need to take out the rubber on here. Take out the rubber and seat this flat, but with the lug on this side, whereas it wasn't before. So we should be able to just do it once and for all. The back one actually is fine. Probably don't need to do anything to that. Fiddly. It's chewing up the rubber now. Come on. You can see how pain in the ass fiddly it is. Right, so we'll get rid of the rubber, won't we? Yes, we will, if we can. Goodbye. Yeah, I think we will. I think that's pretty much how we're going to play it. And this now is going to sit back on there, tied up from underneath, flat on the surface, which kind of feels like it would have been before. But I can't really see how. Oh, God. See, this handling this is just a kerfuffle. And you've got a screw and another one. So, let me just do this up now, flush to the top. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That there, that there, that there. This there, that there, that there. Okay, so that there, that there. Jesus, what's going on? Do as you're told, please. I beg you. Right, that one. And basically, these have to line up because those three things really are the strongest holding points. Okay. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put all these back on. I'm going to polish off the neck. God almighty, this is such a right pain. I'm going to polish the neck out, the frets. There you are. And come back after that with some 11s fitted for good measure, and we'll get a feel of how that all plays out. And again, if it doesn't work, well, we'll go to 10s. It doesn't feel right, we'll go to 10s, but I think it might be an interesting experience. And if it does put any relief in the neck, then we can always adjust the truss rod in the other direction to counter it. Blimey. These guitars are never easy. Seriously not. I mean, even the idea that you kind of take out the original wiring and simplify it and stuff doesn't make handling any of this any simpler. It's an odd beast, any which way you look at it. And even these screws haven't even got enough depth to turn them properly, which is bizarre. Maybe that's just because they're very old. They'll sort of hold. Right. I mean, they're kind of cute in their unusualness, but just on the verge of almost not wanting to work. Okay. Ow. Right. Now, I'm not going to forget what I did forget last time, which is these. Hurrah. Hurrah show. Okay, so the next bit then off camera really is polish this all out, and I'll see you after that. I think we're going. Is it going? Who's telling me something? It's running. It's not flashing, but I don't know. Is it supposed to? Okay, so look, we've got 11s on. I'm sure these are the right way round in terms of gauge, because they're not labelled. These are sort of temporary strings really. So let's see if I can find anything that gives me a hint of what they are. 9.5, 10.5, 12.5, well 10, 11, 12, kind of. What I noticed is that even with heavy gauge strings on, this neck is barely bending in any way, shape or form. So this is as much relief as we can get out of it. Of course, what we haven't done is check the intonation. So I'm going to do flat on its back for a moment, which will no doubt garner much hatred, but it's just how I'm feeling about it right this second. I'm just going to gauge how miles off it is. That's pretty much on. It's interesting because there's no stagger really. Okay, this one wants to go back a little bit. Let's see if it will behave and do as it's told. Kind of. Let's drag these back as well, see what happens. Not bad actually. Can live with that. Right, let's put the strap back on for a minute. I can remember where I threw it. Rolled it up and chucked it somewhere. There was a definite place I put it. It's no longer obvious where that is. Hang it over anything? No. How weird. Tidy up time. Must be down here. How strange. I had it. Right. Excuse me, Morris. I'll just borrow this one then. Sorry, fella. That's weird. Still, this will do for now. Oh, no, I did put it somewhere, but maybe it's fallen down the back of something. Probably. Right. So, after all of its fight, after all of its fighting, here we have Kosmos. Both pickups together at the moment. How can 11s be so bendy? I've lost my mind. I don't know why, how a guitar can be so bendy and it's a full scale. I'm sure somebody's got the answer to this, but I tell you what, I don't. I don't know what's going on. It's really confused me. Neck only. This is a very peculiar beast. No neck relief at all, unfortunately. It doesn't even sound that bad. See what happens when we put up the rectifier levels. Both full on. Single coil, silent, amazing. Understand it. Obviously it's not holding the tune very well. I'm going to have to, I don't actually say which is which in terms of colour, which is a bit annoying. Well, I don't know, but it's weird. It's a very weird thing indeed. Somebody is going to have to one day help me understand why this thing feels like 3 gauges less than it is when it's the same scale length as a Strat. It doesn't even feel like that. But my measuring devices, either that, I've gone mad and I can't read the ruler or something, and I've just looked at it and I've gone, oh, I've imagined 648. It's actually slightly longer than a Strat. It's 2 millimeters longer than your average, your average Stratocaster. So that's 2 millimeters. It's not going to make any difference. The shorter, the lighter it should be. So for the life of me, I don't know why that is, but there we have it. We've got some the remainder of the knobs to go on here, and we've got a couple of little bits and pieces to go on. I mean, there's absolutely no, or virtually no relief in the neck at all, so there's no point adjusting anything. We don't need the cover off or anything because there ain't nout to adjust. Let's see if I can get my stumpy hands to actually hold this in place. Nope. How did I guess? Oh yeah. What we really need is a bit of blue tack. Is that blue tack? That stuff, yeah. Absolutely pointless. Going absolutely nowhere. Nope. Holy moly. This is the part of guitars that really, it's just loony. How you're supposed to hold something in place, get the screw in, make a start on it. Oh, and it's a flathead screwdriver. It hasn't even got, can't even move it around. Look. There it is. Any chance of actually getting it in? Pfft, maybe. Oh. Any chance of getting it in the right place? Maybe. Oh boy, do I hate this. Stay there. Well, we've got these sort of Brian May style plastic, well, not Brian May style, but these plastic fendery knobs, but they're a bit on the loose side. So, oh well, that's why they're a bit on the loose side, unfortunately. It was broken for a start. They're actually too big to begin with. They were designed to work with these solid things, but honestly, that's broke. I think a new set of these is probably in order. I wonder if I can stick that together with some resin or something. Can I even hold the broken bit? Yeah, it looks like somebody's teeth. I could put some glue on here. No, it's not going to stay with glue, is it? At all. The only way it's going to stay is with a bit of resin around the edge. So we could do a bit of glue first, and then we could do some resin around the edge to block it in. But that's a lot. Great. That's the kind of thing about these old guitars, you know, is that everything you do falls apart. You know, one thing you think you've got finished, and then suddenly one thing snaps, or it's already fallen apart. But you know, you find something else that's gone through. Sorry about this a minute. Excuse me. Neighbours, please. It's not even ready. Doesn't even fit back in here very well. How come that doesn't even go together? Right, that does, but it won't stick there. Maybe. Oh, would you shut up? People, eh? Okay, that's not wide enough. No. Worst glue. I don't know why I even bother with glue. Super glue. It never actually does what it says it's going to do. Nope. It's going all over the place. It's not sticking where I want it to stick at all. Okay, that one is. Nope. Yeah, maybe. The lengths I've got to go to glue a piece in place. Right, that can stay there. Right, okay, I'm pretty much done. I'm going to fix that pot and then we'll find a way of, we'll wrap a bit of paper around these. One of the ways we can do it is just to open them up very slightly with a bit of a leverage like that, and then stick them on. There you go. Actually, it's not too bad. So it's a very, very small leverage indeed, and then we'll get the other one sorted and do the same to it. There you go. I'll do this other one ready for when Hugh comes to put the other one on. A very, very small amount. Okay, so I'll mix some resin to fix that. But anyway, we're done. That's it. The long and winding road, otherwise known as the Polish Cosmos from the wicked evil 70s. Really an experience you don't want to have too many times, and I think I've already had probably more than most. So anyway, I hope you found that edifying, stultifying, something like that. Now I want to get on something a bit more straightforward for a change of scenery. So see you again.